Hello everyone, it's your favorite Fire Emblem content creator here, back with another Fire Emblem Engage video, this time focusing on the Ike Emblem Ring, because we just had to do the Tellius characters first, because those are the best games. The Ike Emblem Ring may not be the best ring in the game, but it's easily one of my favorites because of how useful and fun the applications of the ring are. This ring allows the equipped unit to essentially become a super tank that only has to worry about chain attack damage, as well as allowing other interesting strategies like the classic Wrath and Vantage strategy that's been popular for a long time. Once again, I do not claim to be a master of this game by any means, but hopefully I know enough to where I can teach you something and showcase the applications and usefulness of the Ike Emblem Ring. If you enjoy guide content for this game or other RPGs, please be sure to subscribe to the channel because it does help me out so much. I appreciate all of the support. This video should not contain any story spoilers in it, but may show some of the later maps, so do be warned. Let's get into it. So the Ike Emblem Ring offers a nice boost to maximum health, strength, and defense. This makes it a good option on any unit who you intend to use as more of a frontliner, since they'll be able to take more hits and also hit harder in return. In fact, much of this ring synergizes well with that type of playstyle. One of my favorite things to do with this ring was to put it on Diamant and just send them into an army of units and press the Great Ether button to lure and bait out enemies and then kill them. This works especially well if the enemy has no mages, but even if they do, you'll probably be fine. The reason this works so well is because of a number of abilities. The first is Resolve, an ability you get when using this ring that will increase defense and resistance of the person using the ring by 5 when under 75% health, which is a pretty significant increase since it will reduce damage from any attack by 5. This later increases to 7 when you gain further levels on the ring. This on its own already makes whatever unit that has this ring very tanky, but it combos even further with Lagu's Friend, which reduces all damage you take by half, in exchange for making your evasion rate 0. This is a very powerful effect and can lead to a unit taking virtually no damage in most situations, especially if they already have some defensive value. It can also make traditionally non-tanky units very tanky just by virtue of the massive extra defense and damage reduction. But these abilities, the only really dangerous source of damage is chain attacks, which always do 10% of your maximum health as set damage. This could make Pair Up from Corrin a good inheritable skill to consider since it will nullify all chain attack damage, allowing you to become a really strong tank to send into any situation. And if that tankiness and damage reduction wasn't enough already, the special attack of the Ike Emblem Ring is Great Ether. This will grant even more defense for a turn and start charging an attack that will go off at the beginning of the next turn. For the remainder of the turn, you cannot counter, but you will get to move again after using Great Ether on the next turn, making it a really strong option, especially if you're trying to bait out strong enemy units or bosses. This ability can also be used to easily heal back to full health, since it will heal for 30% of the damage dealt, meaning that even if you do take any damage, you'll probably be fine regardless. It can also hit pretty dang hard in the right circumstances. As a singular hit, it can one-shot a lot of weak enemies, which may also lead to a lot of experience obtained in a singular turn. It's a strong attack that scales very well with higher attack power characters. Before talking about specific character synergy or how to best take advantage of this, I want to finish talking about the unique effects of the Ike Ring that it offers. First is Demolish. This just allows you to destroy terrain in a singular hit. This is map specific and not super useful to specific combat applications, but it can be nice to have and is worth keeping track of. Now, Reposition is actually a pretty interesting ability. You can use it to get a unit out of danger or range of an enemy, or simply put them behind the unit who has Ike so they can tank attacks instead. You can also use it more offensively to move a unit closer to enemies if Ike cannot quite reach them, and if you want to cover a greater distance in a single turn. This will use up your turn so you cannot attack on that turn. It's definitely a useful ability to have access to, even if you won't be using it all the time, because it has a lot of utility, and the various applications of it could allow you to beat maps quicker or save units in danger. I like this ability a lot, even if it isn't the most flashy use of the Emblem Ring. The final unique skill that this ring has is Wrath. Any character with the ring equipped will get access to the ability at level 13, otherwise you'll have to inherit it. This ring grants crit rate +1 for each point of missing health during combat, up to a maximum of +30 at 30 missing health. This is just as strong and abusable as you think it is. This extra crit rate works very well for tanky units that don't mind being at lower health and can allow the Ike unit to become a one-man army very easily by getting very powerful critical hits constantly. This works super well when combined with certain forges or other strong critical up abilities. I find this to be one of the strongest effects that this ring has to offer, allowing the unit with this ring to be both an exceptional tank and offensive juggernaut. This skill alone is one of the reasons Ike is also pretty popular on Panette, but before we talk about that too much, let's look at the weapons that this ring has. First up is the Hammer. This is a very specific weapon designed to kill armor units in one hit. Depending on who you have this ring on, this may not be that useful since you might just be able to power through armor units anyway with double attacks, but it's there if you need it. Irvin is of particular note for being a strong 21 might axe that also grants additional resistance if you're dealing with mages and want to throw out a Great Ether or something like that. For that alone, it's a pretty solid weapon choice, and it can also double if you have exceptional build and decent speed depending on the enemy. Ragnail is a very nice weapon for being 1 to 2 range and still being pretty dang powerful with a might of 16. It also grants even more defense if you are somehow needing even more of that. I think that you can get up to 17 bonus defense using this ring, and that's before applying the half damage you take when engaged. It gets pretty absurd pretty quickly, but regardless, this is probably the best engaged weapon just for being 1 to 2 range, and being pretty strong on top of that. Great to use as a counterattack option for sword users. That said, I don't actually like using sword user for this ring, and have found my favorite user of this ring to be Diamant mostly as an axe user, ironically enough. Panette is also very popular for good reason. So let's talk about specific setups then, and how I like to approach using this ring. So specifically, in my case, the reason I chose Diamant is because his kit synergizes very well with the Ike ring. His personal ability, Fair Fight, gives an additional 15 hit rate to both himself and his foe if the foe can counterattack, assuming that you initiate combat. This means Legu's friend's penalty is usually negated anyway, and allows you to have a high hit rate, meaning you can take advantage of axes easier, which have the traditional weakness of lower hit rate and higher weight, which does not matter too much to Diamant. His personal class also gets Soul, meaning he's the only character with access to Soul, and this will recover health equal to half the damage dealt when it activates, and the dex rate is the trigger for this. This is actually really nice with Ike, because it means you can usually send him into any situation, and the self-healing means he'll probably come out fine thanks to the high defense and hit-taking ability that Ike offers. As far as inheritable skills, I did Axe Power and ordered his as hard as possible with axes because the evasion rate down does not matter at all with this setup, meaning that once again this penalty is negated, and I can hit as hard as possible with axes and do a ton of damage. Speed plus 2 is a bit of a filler skill to try to double more enemies and get doubled by less enemies, but pair up is probably better, as mentioned before, because it nullifies chain attack damage, which is the setup's major weakness. If only skills weren't so expensive. And no, Ike having Axe Power does not automatically apply here, it's inheritable only, sadly. Regardless, the setup allows my Diamant to become a mostly one-man army. I also really like using a Forged Silver Great Axe exclusively for Great Ether because the might is so high, and I find this to be the best use of the Smash-type weapons. Reaching a physical attack value of 87 is no joke at all and can destroy a lot of enemies. The main weapon I'm using is a Forged Silver Axe with an engrave that increases both hit rate and crit rate to patch up any weaknesses there are on enemy phase and get even more benefit out of Wrath when health is low, allowing for pretty frequent crits. This setup is based on tanking more than it is taking out everything in sight, but it works decently well for the latter on hard mode. On maddening, you might find yourself coming up a bit short on damage, but you can see here how well this setup works at the very least. So you can kind of see right here with my setup, I'm definitely hitting very, very hard, 51 damage per hit. Like, I am on hard mode, but this is still like level 20 advanced level skirmishes, so these are not necessarily easy enemies by any means, and I've definitely got a pretty solid setup here to take advantage of that. So you're kind of just seeing, you'll see as my health gets lower, my crit rate just starts constantly increasing, which is very, very nice. And I'm not really taking that much damage except from chain attacks and really heavy hitting enemies here. Like, single-digit hits even still are really not doing too much to me. Once the break's over, my crit rate's already increased to 34%. And I'm able to get in a place where I can just do a lot of damage very quickly to these enemies. So my crit rate should be maxed out now, basically. I get a really easy crit here, 90 damage on a Great Knight, which is really nice. And from here, I am kind of isolated by myself. I did kind of a solo here just to kind of show off the power of everything. Crit rate is still really high at 42%. I just lost crit rate ironically there because of the soul healing. But healing up on that turn was really nice because now I'm basically in no danger from any of these other enemies. And I still got a really high crit rate for them, except for the attacks that I get broken on. But that's not really a huge deal. You can just see how tanky this setup is in general, though. I'm able to clear an entire map with Great Ether into this, basically, which is really nice. The crit rate being really high means I hit really hard on most enemies, over 100 damage there. And like I said, I'm not even Berserker class or anything like that. I'm just using Diamant on his standard class here. So could definitely get higher crit rate, could definitely get even more strength. And even still, with Axe Power and just the really strong ability of axes and the high crit rate, I'm still able to hit extremely hard when that activates. And it's a really fun setup. I really like using it myself. But there's definitely other setups, so we're going to show those off as well. I think you get the point here. The other popular setup I've seen but didn't do in my playthrough takes more advantage of Wrath by combining it with the Vantage ability that you can obtain from Leaf. This setup focuses less on tanking and self-healing to deal as much damage as possible. Vantage will always allow you to go first if you're under a certain health value, and the idea is that you kill the enemy in a single hit with a huge critical before they can even attack at all. This setup is usually used on Panette because of her massive strength and strength growth, along with her incredibly useful personal skill Blood Fury, which seems designed to work with Wrath since it gives 10% more critical hit as long as you are not at maximum health. Giving her a Forged Killer Axe with a critical hit engraving allows her to easily hit 100% critical hit rate, and with her power she can probably one-shot anything she is in range to hit, making her an absolute monster with this setup once Vantage activates. Killing every enemy before they can even attack you is definitely fun. Unfortunately, as I did not do this in my playthrough, I can't really show off footage of this build to you, but hopefully you can understand the idea behind the theory crafting. It isn't too difficult to set up, and you might want Axe Power in the other slot here just to hit as hard as possible. It's definitely another great setup and showcases the variety of the Ike Ring and how you can approach fights. I think that's probably going to cover it for this video, so I do hope you learned something from watching. The Ike Ring is very fun to use and one of the easiest to create an unstoppable monster unit with. As always, I welcome any feedback since I am still pretty new to the series and would like to improve any guides I make for this game in the future. If you enjoyed, please be sure to like, subscribe, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. I appreciate all the support, so once again, thank you all so much for watching, and have a wonderful and blessed day, and hopefully I'll see you back here soon.